entrepreneurs cash in on religious tourism in Lalibela, Ethiopia. For these and more, stay tuned. It's time for business. The fuel scarcity situation in Uganda is expected to normalize by mid-next week. According to Ruth Nankabirwa, the Minister of Energy, government, through its agencies, is working around the clock to normalize the situation, adding that truck drivers are being cleared at the Uganda-Kenya border.
The protest by truck drivers against COVID-19 mandatory test at the Uganda-Kenya border is partly the reason for the increase of fuel prices in the country. The interruption in the supply chain prompted the Ministry of Health to suspend mandatory COVID-19 testing to allow the long queues of trucks loosen.
And we are going to see a change from 800 trucks a day to between 1,000 and 500 trucks. And give us between 4 and 6 days. We will clear the 3,250 trucks backlog, which is at the border.
It is now not necessary for any company to hike the price above 5,000.
Whereas is the case, the price of fuel varies at different fuel pumps across the country, and this has technically hiked fees of other commodities on the market.
Things like with the potato is expensive because of the fuel.
We've managed to keep it affordable and competitive in the region. Our prices are competing very well with our neighbors, even the neighbors where we get the fuel.
I have directed the Minister for Energy, the Honorable Nankabirwa, to instruct the Commissioner in charge of Energy to investigate all those who are creating artificial scarcity. Because when you see the flow of fuel trucks into the country, we are not supposed to have any scarcity. And this, we want to invoke the law.
The demand and supply forces are currently at play. The consumers now have preference to determine where to refill from.
So the cost of getting the fuel actually also has increased because now that fuel is not there, there is scarcity of that fuel. So since the cost of the fuel has increased, so now we have also to increase our pump price so that it should sustain the company and the operation of the company also.
I want to advise Ugandans to go to petrol stations that have not hiked the prices, especially Shell and Total. Those two companies have not hiked their prices, and therefore go and buy from those ones.
The current fuel crisis in the country, especially petrol, does not compel government to use its reservoirs to supply fuel, according to the Ministry of Energy spokesperson Solomon Muita.
We are able to store fuel for at least 10 days as a country from the storage facilities we have. And indeed, because the disruption started on the 1st of January, we were able to push up to 14th when interventions went, and the vehicles are still moving. We've not had situations where people have had to park cars.
Government has bought land in Impigi district to set up a big reservoir for up to 320 million litres to counter situations of fuel shortage in the country. If all goes well, by 2025, this...
Residents of Lolwe Island can now enjoy uninterrupted electricity supply. This follows the commissioning of an isolated mini-grid power solution on the island. The project addresses the urgent need of the locals' population that was lacking access to a reliable source of energy.
Located in Namaingo district, Lolwe is one of the islands in Lake Victoria. Like most of the island sub-counties, Lolwe's 15,000 inhabitants have been grappling with lack of reliable power supply.
This government is determined to make sure that we supply power to our communities. We included it in the manifesto. We also included it in the National Development Plan 3.
But with the commissioning of a multi-billion shillings 600 kilowatt solar-powered mini-grid, the power problem is now history.
Economic and livelihood
and welfare of the people of Lolwe is going to change and has already started changing. When you reach all households, grass-thatched houses are already having power in their houses. They even have more power than the people on the mainland.
However, the island residents are implored to utilize the power for social and economic growth.
We visited one of the schools, and when I looked at the pupils, at first I was a bit disturbed because some of them were barefooted. But when I reached the solar plant, hope was built internally. I knew that that will not remain the status quo come the next 1 or 2 years.
And if you think about it, what we need electricity for reading after dark, for cooking without burning wood, coal or gas, for access to information through radio, TV, the internet, to access educational material, to communicate through mobile phones, for doing business, for providing medical service in the health sector, for purifying water like here on the island.
The project is fully aligned with a sustainable green and blue economy with a strong impact for the communities of Lake Victoria and a benchmark to be replicated across rural Africa.
Our businesses have been improved. We can now get fridges. We can now do any business concerning steamer.
We thought it was just like a dream, but now when our hands can now touch it, we are so appreciative. As a head teacher, it has been a struggle.
However, the 1,460 shillings per unit charged by NG Equatorial, the developers of the solar power plant, raise concerns of affordability. Customers on the main grid pay an average tariff of about 504 shillings per kilowatt hour.
NG Equatorial is committed to investing substantial amounts of capital, let's discuss about it, to replicate this project across all islands of Lake Victoria and beyond.
Beyond delivering affordable, reliable and renewable electricity, this hybrid power plant features a productive hub capable of transforming raw material into value-adding products.
As the government strives to get majority of the population into the money economy, reliable and efficient power supply, even for the marginalized communities, is paramount. Dennis Igoa for UBC News in Lolwe.
The Ministry of Health has urged bar owners to establish proper reopening strategies while preparing for the resumption of work on the 24th of January 2022. The caution was made by the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Health, Dr. Diana Twine, at the handover of relief packages to different bar owners donated by Uganda Breweries Limited.
On the 24th of January 2022, the country's night economy is expected to resume working after a 2-year closure brought by COVID-19 and its adverse impacts. Among those sectors to resume is that of nightclubs and bars amidst vigilance against COVID-19.
There's nothing wrong with running a bar business. The only challenge is how do you manage and how do you run it. And I always tell people to separate the two. The challenges we have is how people are running it, but we never have any problem with the business.
And the night economy is not just about bars. It's about jobs. It's about logistics. It's about ICT. Lots of money moves in the night economy.
Bar owners are skeptical of the future of their businesses since many were evicted by their landlords.
That most of the big bars, Diana, are shut down and they are not going to return. We are going to reopen again, but where are we going to start from? Most of these big bars, like I've said, we are really crippled. Some of us taking back our students or children to school, it was a hassle. We had to go to money lenders. We didn't even have to stake because most of these securities of ours are in the banks.
Uganda Breweries Limited has contributed some assortments to bar owners in support of their recovery process. The breweries company has committed to establish COVID-19 vaccination centers at different recreation centers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. But, this is a good way for us to come and partner with the bars and at least help relieve some of the financial burden of having to reopen your business.
The Ministry of Health has cautioned bar owners about observing the existing standard operating procedures against COVID-19.
Join responsibly. After 3 bottles, I don't know. And I know that after 24, only God knows. But please, stay safe. Please make sure that you continue putting on your mask, your social distance. You can take your bottle when you are somewhere in the outside, just lay in an open.
Despite the announcement to open the night economy on the 24th of January 2022, the main means of transport during night hours is border, whose working time is limited not beyond 7 p.m. Charlotte Amuge and Abdul Nasir Lubwama for UBC News.
Members of the E-Trade Association have requested government to lift the 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. border curfew, citing it as a major economic setback to the sector. Now, this appeal comes at a time when government is on the verge of fully reopening the economy.
We call upon the government to lift unconditionally the ban and curfew on borders, to open the economy unconditionally, to allow Ugandans to work.
While reopening some sectors of the economy, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni maintained the curfew on the border sector, though it remains unclear why.
The curfew was particularly for security reasons, because we are imagining how we would manage society when people didn't have food, when people were locked at home, and for instance, from the way things are today, ladies and gentlemen, if the economy is going to be open, the way government intends to reopen and block the borders from operation, 50% of the intended objective will not be achieved.
According to findings by the PSFU, the border industry directly employs over 2 million people, with over 8 million other people that depend on the sector to earn a living.
But the environment is very difficult. There are no jobs available for these young people. In the border industry, you have the dropouts. In the border industry, you have the certificate holders, you have the diploma holders, you have the degree holders. Actually, as if what we even have people who are in the industry and writing and they have masters.
They decry the curfew for hampering the various value chains.
That means we do not have the turnover that we needed. What does that do? We need to employ less people. What does that do? It creates unemployment. So please, this is my one message.
The E-Trade Association has launched a digital petition for all those in support of this call, with intent to face government with their request in the near future. Wadulo Makanold, UBC News in Kampala.
Government has heeded to industrialists' plea by reducing the cost of electricity to 5 US cents per unit. The move is expected to reduce the cost of production and boost government's import substitution drive.
After visiting the Mbala Industrial Park over the weekend to ascertain the electricity supply status, the next stop for the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development was the Liao Shen Kapeka Industrial Park in Nakaseke district. Located about 70 kilometers from Kampala, the Kapeka Industrial Park is privately owned and has played a major role in promoting government's industrialization and import substitution goals.
So by making sure that we have these industries producing, we will see less tiles being imported into the country. But the cost of production can be a deterrent. Somebody will say, I would rather buy something from China than that very something made in Uganda, because the one made in Uganda proves to be more expensive because of the cost of production.
With the increase in number of factories in the industrial park, government has heeded to the plea of the industrialists by boosting electricity supply and reducing on the cost of electricity.
I am beginning this month to supply electricity here at 5 US cents. But I am losing 11.3 billion shillings. Okay? If I go to other industries, other industrial parks, the same thing will happen. So my purpose of coming here is to talk to the industrialists here, the owners of these industries, to say that giving them power at 5 cents comes with other costs. So they should do one thing of increasing consumption of power so that I sell in bulk.
Capacity has no challenge because what we have here is about 20 megawatts equivalent. And when we looked at the demand, although they say it's constrained by COVID, it's about 5.4 megawatts. So still, there's still a gap between what we have here and what the industries are using. But with increased production, we also have a reserve transformer here, and we're also importing even mobile substations just in case we get an upsurge in the demand. But also there's a bigger project that is going to link power from Wabulenzi to here, and from here to Kaweweta to Nakasongola.
Since its commissioning in 2017, the investors have sunk an estimated $200 million into Kapeka Industrial Park and provided over 2,500 direct and indirect employment opportunities to Ugandans. Charlotte Amuge for UBC News.
The frequent interception of harmful organisms in agriculture export consignments, as well as the failure to comply with the maximum residue levels, could negatively affect Uganda's trade position on the global scene. Now, this current challenge has prompted the Association of Horticulture Stakeholders, Hortifresh, to assess the EU audit report of 2021 and dialogue on the new measures for an amicable solution. The poor use of pesticides among Ugandan farmers is posing a threat not only to regional and global trade, but also to the health of Ugandans who consume these products.
Of late, there has been use and overuse and abuse of these chemicals, and we have ended up exceeding the maximum residue levels. These maximum residue levels apply at the international market, and they also apply at the local market because they imply the safety of this food to the consumers.
Inadequate training on pesticide use and continued selling of illegal pesticides by agro-input dealers is negatively affecting Uganda's horticulture subsector.
There are those chemicals which have been researched by other countries and discovered that they are poisonous, and they have been banned. For a reason I don't understand, Uganda is still importing them, chief among which is rocket.
At this workshop, it is expected that stakeholders will come up with recommendations, roles and timelines as part of a short, medium and long-term strategy to position and support Uganda's FFV sector.
The farming practices are not where they should be in terms of the standards and adhering to quality parameters that certain markets like the European Union market requires, and there is clearly a problem of competitiveness in the sector.
We ourselves, there must be a deliberate drive to create awareness for the consumers to make a safe choice for themselves.
Uganda is the second largest producer of fresh fruits and vegetables in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria, producing about 1.1 million tons per year. The crop subsector, which includes horticulture, contributes 14.4% of national GDP. Wadulo Makanold, UBC News. And from across the borders, Lalibela, located in the Amhara region of Ethiopia, is a tourism town with almost 95% of the population dependent on the tourism activities. This ranges from hotels, curio shops, adventure tourism, among others. Now, as Dennis Sigua reports, the rock-hewn churches are the main attraction of Lalibela.
Lalibela, a town in Amhara region of Ethiopia, is majorly famous not only for its rock-cut monolithic churches, but also for the role it plays in the medieval and post-medieval civilization of Ethiopia. The historic town is endowed with a natural topography of mountains, plains and valleys, which make it one of the best tourist destinations in Ethiopia and the world.
Ideally, from the end of September until end of May, it's a perfect time for tourists to come to Lalibela or to Ethiopia in general. The best time I would say to visit Lalibela is actually just after the rain season, which is end of September or beginning of October, where the hills are green and full of flowers that only appear once a year around the New Year, Ethiopian New Year, which is on September 11,
The UNESCO World Heritage Site attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors from all corners of the world. The main Orthodox Christmas event held here annually is the biggest attraction, says Habte Melese, the proprietor of Sora Lodge.
If you see the ceilings, there are some figures which are depicted, in a traditional way, and those figures like the Star of David cross and the Latin cross and some other figures are copied from the churches, So they reflect the tradition and culture of the area.
Over the years, there has been an increase in investment in Lalibela's tourist class hotels and lodges to cater for visitors who are mainly from the Western world.
Mainly from France, Germany, Italy, and America.
Although the foreign visitors bring in foreign exchange, the residents and analysts wonder why the turn-up of African tourists is very low.
Africa's got a lot of this kind of historical, ancient African civilizations and cultural experiences that can be visited. But as you know, most of the tourism products in Africa has been developed in a way to satisfy a certain society or from the colonial experience point of view.
This year's tourist numbers have plummeted due to the attacks from the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, TPLF, in which key infrastructure, amongst them the Lalibela International Airport and some of the religious sites, were destroyed. The Ethiopian government pointed an accusing finger at UNESCO for not condemning the attacks and desecration of one of the world's renowned religious heritage sites.
So for the last 6 months, this area was kind of a war zone, so there was almost nothing. Like there was no power, there was no water, there was no bank, so it was quite tough for us.
Lalibela town, located about 600 kilometers from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's commercial capital, can be reached either by air or by road. Dennis Sigoa and Charlotte Amuge for UBC News.
Today is a day that will significantly shape the rebuilding, restarting, and more importantly, winning Uganda's rightful place in the market. Why do I say rightful? Uganda is recognized as the most hospitable nation, and this is exemplified in the friendliness of its people, the great lifestyle, and the sense of hope.
In our Sounds of Business, we take you to the Afar region in northeast Ethiopia. The continuous process of volcanism has resulted to the occurrence of hot springs in different areas of this vast region. Now, our crew visited the Alalobed hot spring, one of the popular tourist attractions located about 50 kilometers from Semera, the region's capital.
area is the very hot spring of one of the regional tourist destinies, and a lot of tourists are coming and visiting, and a lot of local tourists are also coming. So this is created by what we call this geological land formations. So this is very big tourist destination and very hot and very beautiful tourist destination.
It is the responsibility of all citizens of this amazing country to play their part in promoting the Pearl of Africa as a competitive tourism destination. As it is commonly said, charity begins at home. So start by visiting our local diverse tourism attractions and spread the good news to the world. Enough said. So thank you for watching this episode. My name is Wadulo Mark Arnold. Catch us on the next episode, same time, same place. From the team, I must say good night.